Um, we are very fortunate this morning to have Commissioner Alfred John with us on the call. I have had the pleasure of getting to know Commissioner John a little bit prior to him coming on board as a commissioner, and have already found to be a great advocate of economic development, business, and growth. And so we've got a lot in common, a lot to work on together. So. Um, Commissioner John, with that, I will turn it over, and if you would introduce yourself to everyone, and I know we've got a few things we're going to cover through the discussion, and then we'll open it up to some Q&A and conversation. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is my honor to be here with many of you folks. You are the spokes in the wheel of the chamber, and it's good to be here with you. A little bit about myself. I'm an immigrant child. I was born in the vast, sprawling metropolis of Bombay, India, and I lived there for the first few years of my life. If you folks ever think about going to India for a visit, do consider my home state of Kerala, Kerala. If you want to Google it, take a look. It's a gorgeous place to visit. Here there are there's a greater and greater population, especially in South Forsyth. I would ask that you greet them, meet them, ask them what state they're from, what language they speak. Those are usually great icebreakers with them. After my childhood, my parents had an assignment in the island nation of Bahrain in the Middle East. So I ended up living there for about 4 years. Got to meet a lot of folks who were Arab, and none of whom matched the depiction in the Western media. They're warm and friendly and extremely hospitable people. So we lived there for about 4 years, and it was great. In 1983, I had the pleasure of immigrating to the United States. What an incredible privilege to have a country open its doors to our family. I tell the story of driving out of the airport in New York and wondering aloud what BLVD and EXPWY meant. When you're that new, you have no idea what you're seeing, or you have no idea what you're digesting even. So simple things stay with you. And I remember, back then going up the escalator in a mall and seeing this box of blinking lights and the word Pac-Man written on the top. And I was in heaven. So this is the immigrant story, coming to a strange land, mingling with people who look and act nothing like you, and adapting and learning and growing. So I went to school there, graduated, and started my career there. I was always technically savvy, and so by the age of 23, I was managing the internal help desk of a regional bank, living up to my stereotype, overseeing about 17 people. I met my wife soon after, got married, bought my first house at the age of 27, and living the American dream. So that is where we are. In February of 2002, I received an offer from a firm in Georgia and moved. Forsyth County appealed to me because of the natural beauty of the place and some of the uniqueness of the properties, which I couldn't find in Gwinnett. We rented for the first few months and found that Forsyth was central to Technology Park in Norcross, tech opportunities in Alfred, and then it was just a decent commute to 85 and 400. So I've never regretted the decision for even a minute. Love what the place was, love what the place has become, and looking to continue to grow. Just a little bit about my personal life, which I don't like to talk about much. My wife and I celebrated our 25th anniversary this past December. We have a 23-year-old who graduated this past May and pursued his lifelong dream of becoming a police officer. So we have a daughter who's pursuing a dual degree in nursing and public relations. And I'm incredibly proud of my children, not because of anything they've accomplished professionally, but because they're just good people, well-spoken, and model citizens. I can put them in front of a U.S. senator or a 3-year-old child, and they can equally connect with either one. So that is just a little bit of introduction about myself.
Well, that is a great introduction, and thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that and a bit of your story. So, tell us a little bit, since I think most folks on the call are business folks, and tell us a little bit about your business background and the firm that brought you here, and kind of what you're doing now and what you're working on outside of the time you're spending as a commissioner.
Yeah, so my tech background is in database management, but I specialized in technology in the human capital management space, which is everything having to do with people within a company. So HCM is everything from recruiting, HR, onboarding, payroll, benefits, performance management, compensation, time and attendance, you name it, all of that, everything having to do with employees. In the back end, there's technology, there are applications that manage all of this. So that's been my specialty over a number of years. My employer was a vendor in the space when I moved here, and I became something of an expert, not just in the technology side of things, but also in process management. And I spent a couple of years as a corporate trainer, and also as a consultant to at-risk clients for that vendor. I also focus heavily on data analytics and reporting, which allows companies to make database decisions and some long-term forecasting as well. So this then led to a gig as an analyst with a national advertising firm. I was managing their back-end technology, but gradually expanded my knowledge of the HR business to where at last I was a senior manager over HR operations, payroll, and HR technology. I have a good understanding of all of HR, except for some of the employee relations side. I tend to stay away from that.
Excellent, very good. Well, that is an impressive background, and I think is also very reflective of where business has been recently, at least, and I think for the foreseeable future, headed for Forsyth County is in that wheelhouse. So thank you, and we look forward to your experience in that area, working with us in economic development, particularly because that is a space that we know there's incredible opportunity still out there to grow and develop. So, I want to tell us a little bit about what prompted your decision to run for the BOC. I mean, that's a huge personal sacrifice and contribution to your community, and what prompted that?
Anyone who knows me knows that I'm pretty media shy, don't seek publicity, don't seek the spotlight. But back in 2017, I was tapped by then Commissioner Rick Swope to sit on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Rick insisted that I join, even though I was quite reluctant, and then I carried on that role through 2020, and I ended my term there last year as chairman of that board. If you're not familiar with the ZBA or the Zoning Board of Appeals, that board listens to variances that the Board of Commissioners do not. So, if you're building a pool or you're building a structure in your house and you want to go into the setbacks or, something that's non-conforming, you would, make an application to the board, and then we would listen and make a decision based on the criteria. As that was happening, I was also reconsidering my career and the amount of time I was putting into it. I was routinely working 14, 15-hour days, 7 days a week. Some of you are probably familiar with this, wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, roll over, check your phone, and then, get up. And then that continues all the way through, 10:30, 11 at night. And I had spoken to my wife about taking a short sabbatical, 3 to 6 months, and she was supportive. And then while looking for an opportunity to serve the community, I was having dinner with our commissioner, and he mentioned that this might be a great opportunity for me, and I felt that I could contribute very strongly. One, because of my experience with the ZBA, but secondly also because um, I bring a very analytical, clinical approach to any role, and I think that's something that was needed. Um, Make rational, sober decisions that are based on data and not necessarily based on emotion. Um, so all those factors came to a head, and then I felt that I would be the right person for the seat, and dove in. Um, I bring a no nonsense approach to the board, and specifically to District Two. Something that you should know about me is I am not an absolutist. Um, I think that's the danger we have with a lot of people in elected office, that they're so sure about um, who they are and what they want to do, and you'll find that I don't have much patience for people like that. Um, you know, in terms of business, we all thought 2 years ago that Class A office space was the be all and end all for commercial development. Well, I'm not so sure anymore. COVID has made us rethink our positions on those decisions. Um, we all thought that retail would flourish, and then COVID cast a cloud on that. Um, Many residents believe that homes should be built on a third of an acre or half an acre or 1 acre lots. Um, I've had a little bit of an evolution on that, because can you honestly tell me that the next generation of buyers, those who are 25 to 45 years old, want to mow lawns and trim bushes? Uh, so I think we need a variety of options there as well. You can see that in the thriving communities of Avalon and Halcyon, and especially Vickery Village. Go to Vickery Village on a weekend, or even one afternoon. You'll see hundreds of kids empty out of the buses, and you'll find that young families live there. They mix and mingle. It's a little congested for my taste, but it seems to me that the next generation of buyers are looking for something like that. So again, the reason I'm saying that is because I'm not fixated on one thing. I'm open to ideas. I'm open to suggestions, and building what is best for our community and for Forsyth County as a whole. Life has a way of throwing curveballs at us, and we should be malleable.
Very good. So, Commissioner, it's coming in, and of course, my experience has always been that it always looks, whether it's a job or a commission seat or an elected office, it's always different from the outside looking in than the inside looking out. So now that you are there and getting your feet wet in the job, what do you see as being your top priorities? What are you most interested in pushing forward, working through with your seat on the BOC?
Great question. On the west end of my district, I have three major projects, infrastructure projects that are coming up. One is the Ronald Reagan extension, which I hope many of you are familiar with. The other one is the McGinnis Ferry widening. And then third is the McGinnis Ferry interchange on 400. When all of these three projects come together, what you will find is an incredible opportunity for commercial development all up and down that corridor. Much like what you saw at North Point or North Point Parkway, you can see much of that coming up as well. We have an opportunity in our county because we have a very high-end population. By that, I mean highly educated, um, upper middle class to wealthy population as well. So I believe that it'll draw a lot of employers to look at various sites in that area. So a lot of planning needs to go ahead of the completion of these projects, and determine what kind of growth takes place there. We also have one more, which is the Old Atlanta Road widening, which ties in with, if you're not familiar with it, there's a quarry in South Forsyth, not the one next to Northside Hospital, but this is right by St. Marlow. So if you look at a map and you look at the St. Marlow subdivision, it's just north of there. And about 450 acres, which is untouched, is coming up for development. It's to be a mixed-use community with homes or detached homes, attached homes, some multifamily, commercial, retail. We have plans for an employer. We're talking to the school system about possibly building an academy. We're looking at possibly a satellite university campus. Again, if you look at it as a full project, a complete project, it'll be a tremendous development. I don't think we've seen anything of this size and magnitude. Just to put it in context for you, Avalon, which everyone talks about and brags about, is 85 acres. This is 5 times that size at 450 acres. So we have a tremendous opportunity to execute if we build this right. Some of the things that I've asked the developer to build through is, throughout the community, have some trails and pocket parks where people could walk through and mix and mingle, but also connectivity to the adjacent communities where adjacent subdivisions like St. Marlow, Laurel Springs, Aberdeen, Lake Point, all of those communities will have access to it either through pathways or roadways, and they can also utilize all of the features and functions that are available within that community. So I hope to usher that through and see that develop. Of course, it's not going to be, a 2 or 3 year development. This is probably going to be more like a 10-year development. So it's got a long runway, and I'd like to see it get started off right.
James, I believe you're still muted.
Is that better?
I think I just blew James away. He was shocked.
Sorry, I realized I had accidentally on my headset muted myself twice. So sorry about that. Can y'all hear me now? Okay. Okay. So obviously that's got a lot of moving pieces. The Davidson site's got a lot of clearly a lot of interest from the development community. What kind of mix do you see happening there? Like I know obviously market pressure is residential, the demand for that is extremely high, probably higher now than it has been in a long time. But of course, we are out there banging the drum as hard as we can to make sure that commercial has at minimum a comparable seat at the table for both retail, but also office and tech companies, and making sure that we're doing everything we can. We know there's a demand for that, but it's very hard to compete with residential. So, kind of what do you see as the mix of that, and how do you see decisions getting made moving forward about how that gets done?
I think you have to look at what attracts people to a development. To me, I believe it's the vibrancy of that community. When I say vibrancy, it's a place where people can, live, but also be able to work and be able to take their families out and utilize a lot of the amenities. So again, it's easy to just cram a bunch of houses, right? A lot of residential properties into a space. But if you have a gathering space, like say a Suwannee Town Center, that a lot of people find attractive and they want to be there. If you have trail space where people can walk, and so even in Forsyth County, a lot of the parks where they're just playing fields, they've built these trails, and you find a lot of people utilizing those trails. So that trail space is going to be important. But again, the 2 items that I focused on a little bit earlier was um, a possibility of a STEM school or a science-based academy, which caters one to the demographic of that area, but secondly, it also uh, brings investment into that area. If we have, say, a satellite campus for Emory University or Georgia Tech, um, I envision that actually will create incubators. So that's the vision. So, in the past, it's always been retail and homes, right? But if we build something a little bit greater, which we have an opportunity on 450 acres, I think we can build a community that will sustain itself over the long term.
Great, very good. Well, and really along those lines, as you're coming into office, I mean, what countywide, certainly, interested in your district too, but just countywide too, what do you see as our biggest challenges, which are also the opportunities, but what do you see as those challenges and a path to address them as we move forward?
Yeah, for me, I believe it's, what does inflation mean today? I believe, along with many others, that we are on a bubble, and what does investment opportunity look like? Um, you know, Lease and rental costs for commercial retail is a bit of a problem. I've talked to a number of potential investors in our space, and just 2 days ago, actually, I'm meeting with a restaurateur this evening who has a couple of properties in the city of Atlanta, and he finds Forsyth County to be even more expensive than even the city of Atlanta. So I think I would say that I would collaborate with our commissioners and especially with Chamber. James, you and I have had a number of conversations. How do we manage that properly so that investment comes into our community? The other part is, the lack of infrastructure. When I talk about infrastructure, everyone focuses on roads and water and sewer. My focus is on technology. So we need to have fiber all throughout the county. How do we promote that? How do we get that moving forward? I think that will spur growth. So those are the challenges that I see that people have to look at Forsyth County like they view Alfred today, which is a very forward-thinking and a forward-moving county.
Very good. I tell you what, looking at our time, we why don't we shift gears a little bit, because I always love to hear about this from particularly our commissioners, and so and talk about leadership just more broadly speaking, kind of the idea of leadership, and I guess I'd start by asking you, and I think it's a fun question to ask, but how do you define leadership? What does that mean to you?
Okay. I would suggest that leadership is the ability to come up with or formulate a strategy. Um, have a plan in place before you go in front of your constituents. Secondly, set a course towards accomplishing that accomplishing that vision. Um, you can't allow someone else to hijack that story, or you can't allow someone else to tell that story for you. So as a leader, you have to be in front of various constituencies and tell them, here's what I want to do, here's what I want to accomplish. But then also be able to persuade and influence and lead others towards achieving that goal, or towards achieving that strategy. So I believe those are the main components. One is establishing or formulating a strategy. Second is setting that course towards accomplishing it. And third is being able to influence others to follow your lead.
Very good. Excellent. Great answer. So, and certainly there's a lot of people out there who seem to be acting and behaving in a way that our crisis, particularly COVID, is over and we're moving on. And I totally understand that feeling. But clearly, I think any, at least business folks see that that horizon, at least as it impacts business, is further out there, and that crisis continues. So, in of course, the county's just recently done a remarkable job of getting the vaccine that we do have out very quickly. Of course, I think the challenge has been just the amount of vaccine that we have available. But in thinking through, particularly this coming year, as that particularly the COVID crisis continues, like how do you think about like uh, leading through a crisis and leading through those really challenging times that we know are still ahead, and even some that we probably are ahead that we are not aware of yet. And how do you what is your approach to leadership through those moments?
My second week on the job, I got my first taste of getting yelled at, and it was via emails and voicemails. People were very frustrated that they weren't getting their vaccines in a timely manner. I think one of the critical pieces in that response would be empathy. I'd call people up, and almost all of them were senior citizens, and they were angry that they didn't have the vaccine, and it was empathizing with their plight. Many of our senior citizens, or almost all of our senior citizens, have been trapped in their homes for nearly a year now. They don't have their usual social life, their social bonding groups. They haven't been able to travel, take vacations, all the things that keep them healthy, both physically and mentally, they haven't been able to do. So this vaccine is their get out of jail free card. It gives them this measure of freedom that they haven't had before. So they want it now, and I get it. Some of it is also self-awareness of what you're saying and how you're saying it. So as I was dealing with some of these frustrated folks, rather than inject myself into it or say, hey, my parents didn't get it either. It's saying, look, I understand. Let me see what I can do, and then getting back to them. When Forsyth County came up with that plan, we had an allotment of 2,400 vaccines. To some, it doesn't seem like a lot. To others, it seems like a lot. I made an effort to reach out to all these people, emailing, texting them, calling them, letting them know. And for actually one couple, an elderly couple, even getting online with them and helping them get their appointment. Some of it is also, building that influence and wielding it wisely. So as I interact with people, I'm very particular about what I say, and sometimes humor is called for also, but you have to be careful when you say it and how you say it. So when you have customers who are unhappy that they don't have vaccines, the fact is still this: we don't have enough vaccines in the nation. I believe Georgia's allotment, daily allotment, was only about 14,000. They've raised it a little bit now, but 14,000 a day doesn't begin to cover the number of senior citizens just that we have in Forsyth County alone. In Forsyth County, I believe we have about 34,000 or 35,000 senior citizens. So even if we were given 1,000 a day, that's still 7 weeks, and people expect it immediately. So the numbers are against us. They work against us. But You have to be honest with people and tell them we'll do everything we can to get a greater allotment of vaccines and deploy it. As James alluded to earlier, Forsyth County did a fantastic job. Our EMA, fire department, cooperation from Northside Hospital, our sheriff's department, everybody came together. Within about 4 or 5 days, they implemented a plan. Within about 24 hours, they put up a site that would take in appointments, and it was all so seamless. Everyone who attended those, I was there for 2 of those days, found that it was one of the most efficient processes that they had ever gone through.
I heard from both participants and then those who were engaged in administering it that it just really could not have gone better. And hats off to you guys. I know that it's no small undertaking, and appreciate the county's leadership in doing that. And in fact, and I'm sorry, I don't want to take any moment to plug our a program of ours, but I'm going to. We are, and I don't know, Laura, if this has been announced yet, but if you would, we've got an event coming up with the Healthcare Association, led by Lynn Jackson, the Chief Operating Officer of Northside, regarding the vaccine. Do you mind plugging that, just since we're talking about it?
Yeah, I will never shy away from an opportunity to plug something, James, a program that we are doing. Yes, the Healthcare Association is going to be hosting a virtual vaccine educational event. That date is February 11th, and it will be at 11 a.m. Marketing is about to launch. As you all can imagine, the participants in that event, we struggled to find a date and time that would work for all of those folks, but we will have Dr. Zachary Taylor, who is the Georgia District 2 Public Health Director, as well as some physicians from Northside doing a panel discussion on Q&A regarding the vaccine. So took a bit to schedule it. We're getting marketing information out. That event will be at no cost and open to the whole community to participate, on a virtual meeting with those folks. So yes, thank you, James, for mentioning it.
Absolutely. I know. So one of the things that became, I think, very clear was that there's so many bits and pieces of information out there, and actually we heard this directly from Chris Grimes, the head of emergency services. There's so many bits and pieces that having local experts, people that many people know Lynn Jackson, many people know who Dr. Taylor is, and others, and directly engaging with them. So we're really excited to have that. Hope a lot of folks will join us for that as well. So excuse me, I'm getting a, there we go. I just want to close with one question, then we'll open it up for some Q&A. And and this is another a favorite question. Any conversation I'm having with somebody. But so, if you were the benevolent dictator of Forsyth County, and I think we can safely assume you would be benevolent, if you were the benevolent dictator of Forsyth County, what are the things that you would just wave your hand and change and make different right away?
Oh, that's the type of question that makes me go off on a rant. Because we have far too many dictators, benevolent and otherwise, in elected office, don't we? I don't mean to be hypercritical, so you'll extend me some grace there.
Yeah, sure.
Here. I would bring Dwight Yoakam, Metallica, and LL Cool J to do a concert in Forsyth County. How's that?
That is the best answer I have ever heard to that question. That is very good. I like that very much.
Let me add something to that. That question. I know it's meant in in good nature, but elected officials tend to forget that they are public servants. Right. While I have this leadership role, I do hope to roll up my sleeves and, get to the task of serving the citizens, whether it's meeting with them, talking to them, they have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, in homes and businesses throughout our community, and they're looking to us. And look, the Chamber of Commerce plays a critical role in that as well. Okay, they're looking to us to steer the ship in rough waters. So, we have a great task and we have a great responsibility. Look, in calm waters, they want to know what happened to the wind, right? In stormy waters, they want to know when is the calm coming. Um, when it's bright sunshine, they'll want to know where the rain is so they can get a drop of water. But when it's when it's raining, they want that sliver of sunshine. It's up to us to provide that leadership and that calm confidence in our role. Again, as I mentioned, it's not just the residents who've invested hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, but it's also the business community. And many of them are going through some uncertain times. And we have to do everything we can to figure out how we can enable them to stay successful and feed their families. So I would ask all of you to, partner with the commissioners. You're our greatest source of information a lot of times. So definitely reach out to us and keep us informed. One thing I do want to add is what I have in my favor is that I have a God who watches over me and ensures that I conduct myself with a good measure of integrity. I have family who expects my leadership and my reputation to be somewhat of a legacy as well. And then you all are going to hold me accountable for what I do, but also how I do it, how I carry it out. So
Very good.
I'll leave it at that.
Excellent. All excellent. Very good. Thank you. So let's open it up to some questions. What I ask you to do is, if you go to the participants list at the bottom of your screen, if you should be able to mouse over the participants and click on that.
James, one more thing on my
Please.
wish list.
Yeah.
If money were no object and there was no obstacle, I would find a way to slap fiber all over Forsyth County, top to bottom, from the northwest corner to the southeast corner, all up and down. I think that will spur growth like you've never seen. And I firmly believe that that's the way of the future.
Very good. Excellent. All right. Let's. So if you if you have a question or would like to discuss something, if you pull up the participants list at the very bottom of the participants list, you should see a little blue hand that says raise hand. And if you would just raise your hand, I'll unmute you and we can chat. So are there any questions or anything you'll want to chat about with our new commissioner? Anna, Lyle, if you'll unmute yourself.
Yes. Good morning again. So I just put this in chat, but I'm not sure if it's visible to everyone. So Commissioner John, you mentioned asking people about the languages that they had in India. And so I wanted to make sure you knew that the Sharon Forks Library has hundreds of books in several Indian languages, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, and Marathi. So I was curious about which languages you speak and read.
Yeah, I've been here a long time, so I have become what they called Americanized. So my primary language is English, but I'm conversant in a Southern Indian dialect of Malayalam. But I just read through your message, and I believe that you've hit on the major languages that are represented in South Forsyth. Actually, not just South Forsyth, let me be clear. In much of Forsyth now, which is Hindi and Telugu. Those are the most broadly spoken languages in our county. So well done there.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that, because you might imagine that was quite a challenge to narrow down that. And we started with the first three and then added Marathi. other Asian languages. We also have Korean and Chinese, but we have found that because a lot of the books are not translated into English, even those who are very proficient in English enjoy having that taste of home, or when they have relatives come and visit who do not speak or read English, they enjoy being able to find those. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure you know about that, and I appreciate your sharing your culture with us.
Thank you. I do want to add that, you hit on the right note with the large Chinese population who read and speak Mandarin. But I also want you to be aware that we have a large community of Slavic descent as well as folks from the Balkans. So I think it'll be good to have some books that cater to them as well.
Thank you.
Very good, Anna. Thank you. And I know in discussing fiber, and Brandon, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I do know there have been many conversations with particularly the Board of Commissioners and AT&T, but also our state delegation about that very item, and talking about where it is and where it isn't, and how to address that. And Brandon, I don't know if you want to touch base on that, but I know we have helped facilitate some of those conversations in the past, and certainly Brandon, with you coming in new behind Paul, would please know that we stand ready to facilitate those conversations as well. But I don't know if you want to maybe address that a little bit from AT&T's perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was trying to find the raise my hand button to hit on the fiber thing. So that's obviously one of the things. I'll go back as soon as this call's over, and I'll go try and find out what does our fiber footprint, fully look like. But then also, what's our fiber build plan? So we are taking a very aggressive approach to laying out fiber, especially in densely populated areas where kind of makes sense as you get in the greater metro Atlanta area. But with some of the product offerings we have as it relates to things like HBO Max and some of the new streaming services that AT&T is part of. So from a broadband perspective, where we had started slowing down as we got into late 2019, even last year, that stuff is starting to ramp up as we get into this year. We're starting to see some very aggressive movement in terms of getting fiber back out, not in getting it back out, it's already there, but hitting pockets that weren't hit before, but hitting them with a very targeted approach. In the first go round, it was a lot of kind of the overbill, looking at areas that might have something around fiddle and things like that, or maybe a new neighborhood might be popping up. Now it's going to look at areas that we can really ramp that speed up, that really need it. So before, you may have a neighborhood that had UVerse service that was getting 50 to 100 meg service, and you might say, well, that works for today's standards for a family that's just looking at Netflix. But they're going into those neighborhoods now with this new build plan, and they're going to be laying a bunch of fiber. So the good with that is there's a lot of fiber that's going to be going out. The bad of that is always, as you go to deploy fiber, you have a little bit of the headache of the trenching of the yard as you lay the fiber, and the headache that goes along with that. So please forgive us for the slight delay in terms of your yard maybe being a little bit in disarray, but they'll fix that back. But on the back end of that, you'll have the great speeds that go along with that. So, but I'll find out kind of what that plan looks like in particular for the Forsyth area, and kind of get you some answers back on what that scope looks like and how broad that is.
My street actually is being surveyed right now by your third-party surveyors, and I let folks know that fiber's coming, and the excitement is just palpable. I mean, people are super excited. So,
yeah, I mean, and they're looking at traditionally we do 1 gig. I mean, they're talking about even ramping the speeds up as we start moving forward with the fiber. So you may even start seeing some faster speeds along with that too. So it'll be great in terms of the product for sure. And it was great.
Go ahead, Brandon. Sorry. No, please.
I was great to hear about your heritage as well. I had the fortunate opportunity to spend some time in Hyderabad about a month or so, and so it was great to hear some of your backstory in your childhood there. It brought back some of my memories of spending some time over in India. So
Thank you.
And Brandon, well, first of all, as someone who is in a neighborhood that did get fiber, I can't. It's probably been 2 years ago. To speak to that, it is more like you are being invaded by AT&T, but it was an invasion that we all welcomed. So thank you, and it was amazing how fast that really went. It was. Our neighborhood is not enormous, but it went very, very quickly, and y'all did a great job, and we are grateful for it. And it did make a huge difference, both from work and also just entertainment, that sort of thing. But at some point, Brad, too, I think, since we've got those folks on the call, maybe it'd be good to also have a conversation about a 5G update at some point in the future. Probably not today, of course, but at some point in the future, to talk about kind of what that looks like for us as a community. And I know there's been a few bumps in the road, and that I think have now largely been ironed out, but want to chat about that. And I think it'd be a good conversation to have, just to know from a business perspective, what to expect and how to expect it coming as well, because that's a huge item of technology infrastructure as well that's coming.
yeah, absolutely. The 5G story is a great story, and we can certainly spend some time talking about that. But in terms of the technology and what comes along with 5G, I think that is that will be even a larger game changer, I think, than the fiber deployment that we're getting out there in terms of what the potential that will ultimately bring. You'll start seeing, kind of like when the iPhone came along, nobody really knew what to expect with the apps and things of that nature. I think you're going to see a similar explosion in terms of technology creation and innovation that comes with 5G, where you will literally have things such as a doctor that's able to perform surgery on a patient in Atlanta, Georgia, while the doctor is sitting in New York or some other remote location. And the technology that brings is fascinating. But yeah, we'll talk about the coverage there. That's a great success story, and where it's kind of grown. The map on that looks great for us. And then yes, in terms of the actual deployment of fiber, one of the things I've been pushing them very hard on is we have to be more upfront in our communications about, if we're coming in, we're tearing up a neighborhood to put fiber into the ground, we need to be communicating with that neighborhood well in advance to say, this is what's happening. This is why your yard is, maybe being dug up. And this is about how long you can expect before your yard will be repaired, and how long before you'll be able to start ordering fiber. I know some of the early experiences with that, you might have somebody come and trench your yard, and it was just kind of the great unknown. It might be, some cases it was 3 months down the road, and some cases it was a year down the road. You just really didn't know. And so we're pushing for some tighter timelines and more definitive answers so we can communicate that up front to the consumers.
And James, I don't know if you want to coordinate with Brandon, and perhaps he can prepare a presentation, a 5 or 10-minute presentation, and come before the board and share what the plans are for Forsyth County.
I'd be happy to work, Brandon, with you and Commissioner with you as well, and we can do that. So I just looked down at the time, and I'm sorry. We try to keep this to an hour, of course, and we're now at 5 minutes over. So. Commissioner, thank you. If you have any closing comments you want to share, I certainly would give the floor back to you to close us out.
Like I said, greatest ideas come from constituents, and you folks on the board. I consider you my constituents as well, not just the residents. I will say this, I keep harping on this. Technology is the way of the future. It'll spur growth and investment. I mentioned attract a Georgia Tech or an Emory campus to Forsyth County, and if we can get a STEM or science academy. To this date, Forsyth County doesn't have a STEM academy, whereas Gwinnett has 2. We have the bright talent to compete there. But I talked about incubators. Look, I want to be the next Newton, Massachusetts, or the next Austin, Texas, or the next RTP in North Carolina, right? That is where Forsyth County should aim towards, and that is where we should grow towards. So looking forward to working with and in partnership with you. Thank you.
And that is music to my, and I think all of our ears. So thank you, Commissioner, so much for your time today. And thank you, everybody who was on the call. It was a great group and great for you. Thank you all for joining us in a great conversation. I hope you all have a good rest of your week and a good rest of your day today. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.